Hey everyone, welcome to GL Yuri Tales. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's video. Let me know your favorite moment in the comments section.
Someone was trying to break into my room. I didn't know that yet. All I knew was that I was being shoved, hard, against the cold marble wall of the hallway outside my bedroom, and a tall, solid body had caged me in before I could even scream. A hand clamped over my mouth. The other braced beside my head, and for a terrifying second I thought, this is it. I'm being kidnapped inside my own house. But then I saw her face, sharp, calm, unmoving, Raven Veil, my bodyguard. Her eyes weren't on me. They were over my shoulder, focused, deadly, listening. I could feel her breath on my cheek, steady and controlled, while mine came out in panicked bursts against her palm. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. Don't move. Not gentle, not comforting, an order. Somewhere inside my bedroom, I heard it. A faint metallic click, like a window latch being forced open. My heart slammed into my ribs. Someone was inside. Raven's body pressed closer, shielding me without hesitation. Her arm shifted slightly, positioning herself between me and the bedroom door like I was made of glass. And I realized something that made my skin prickle. She had known before I did. She had heard it before I did. She had reacted before I even understood what was happening. Her eyes flicked down to mine for the briefest second. And for the first time since she had been assigned to me 3 weeks ago, I saw something there. Not coldness, not distance. Fear. For me. Then she removed her hand from my mouth and spoke into the small mic in her collar. Breach confirmed. East wing. Subject secured. Subject. That was me. I should have hated that. But right now I didn't care. Because her hand slid from my mouth to my wrist instead, holding me, firm, grounding, like if I tried to run, she wouldn't let me. And strangely, I didn't want her to. 2 other security men rushed past us into my room with I flinched at the sound of boots. But Raven didn't even blink. She stayed exactly where she was, still between me and the danger, still watching, still holding my wrist. I whispered, my voice shaking, "Is someone really in there?" Her answer was calm. Yes, not maybe. No, we're checking. Yes. A loud crash came from inside, glass shattering. I grabbed her shirt without thinking, fisting the fabric at her chest. And she didn't tell me to stop. She didn't look down at my hand. She just let me hold on. Minutes passed like hours. Then, all clear. The voice echoed from inside my room. Raven finally moved, but only slightly. She looked down at my hand, still clutching her shirt. Then at me. And for a moment we just stared at each other. Her face was still that same unreadable mask. But I could feel the heat of her body, the strength in the arm braced beside my head, the quiet intensity in her gaze. "You're safe," she said, and I hated how much those 2 words made my... 3 weeks ago, I told my father I didn't need a bodyguard. 3 weeks ago, I told him I wasn't a child. 3 weeks ago, I told Raven Veil to stay out of my way. Now, I was standing in the hallway at 2 a.m., barefoot, shaking, holding on to her like she was the only solid thing in the world. And the worst part? She didn't look annoyed. She didn't look uncomfortable. She just looked, used to this, used to protecting people, used to being the wall between them and danger. "Miss Laurent," she said quietly, "I need to check the room before you enter." I nodded, still not letting go. She gently removed my hand from her shirt, not roughly, not impatiently, just carefully, like she knew I needed a second. Then she stepped into my bedroom, and I followed her without thinking, because suddenly, the place that used to feel safest in the world felt wrong unless she was in it. The window had been forced open. Glass littered, cold night air drifted through the curtains. I wrapped my arms around myself. Raven noticed. Of course she did. She always noticed everything. She walked to the window, checked the frame, then turned back to me. "Pack a small bag." "What?" "We're relocating you to the safe house tonight." My heart skipped. "You mean, I can't stay here?" "No." Her tone left no room for argument. And strangely, I didn't argue. Because all I could think was, if she's going to the safe house, then I am too. And for the first time since she entered my life, the thought didn't irritate me. It comforted me. As I turned to grab clothes, I caught my reflection in the mirror. Messy hair, wide eyes, bare legs, oversized sleep shirt. And behind me, Raven, tall, still, watching the room, watching me. Like a shadow that had decided I was worth guarding, I swallowed. Because a thought slipped into my head that made my stomach flip. If someone tries to hurt me again, she'll push me against the wall. She'll cage me in. She'll hold me like I'm something fragile, and for reasons I didn't understand yet. I wanted her to. I really, really wanted her to. I used to think being watched was the worst feeling in the world, until I realized Raven never looked away. Not when I brushed my teeth. Not when I walked down the stairs. Not when I pretended I didn't notice her standing 3 feet behind me like a human shadow with a gun. She didn't stare in a creepy way. She didn't stare in a curious way. She stared like she was calculating every possible way I could die in the next 10 seconds. And somehow, that was worse. The drive to the safe house was silent. I sat in the back seat of the armored SUV, hugging my overnight bag to my chest while Raven sat beside me instead of in the front. She usually sat in the front. I noticed that. She didn't speak. Didn't check her phone. Her eyes kept scanning the dark streets outside the window like the night itself was suspicious. I stole glances at her when she wasn't looking. Her jaw was sharp, her expression blank. But there was a faint cut above her eyebrow I had never noticed before. A thin scar. Old. I wondered how she got it. I wondered what kind of life leaves marks like that on a person. You're staring. I jumped. I am not. You are. Her voice was calm, not accusing. Just factual. I turned my face toward the window, embarrassed. I'm just trying to process the fact that someone climbed into my bedroom. She nodded once. They didn't get far. That's not comforting. It should be. I looked back at her. Do you ever say anything that isn't terrifyingly blunt? Yes. Like what? She didn't answer. And for some reason, that made... The safe house was an apartment downtown I didn't even know my family owned. Minimal furniture, neutral colors, no personal touches. It felt like a place designed for people who never intended to stay long. Raven checked every room before allowing me inside. Closet, bathroom, under the bed, behind the curtains. I stood in the living room, watching her move with quiet efficiency. She didn't rush. She didn't hesitate. She just knew what to do. And suddenly I felt something strange. Not fear, not irritation, relief. Because if Raven was here, nothing bad could happen. That room, she said, pointing to the bedroom. You'll sleep there. You? Couch? I frowned. That couch looks uncomfortable. I don't need comfortable. I hesitated, then said something I didn't plan to say. You can take the bed. She looked at me like I had spoken another language. No. It's big. No. We can, Miss Laurent. Her tone dropped slightly, a warning. And I realized something. She was terrified of crossing lines. Not because she disliked me, but because she was trying very hard to remain just my bodyguard. Just staff. Just professional. And that realization did something dangerous inside my chest. Because now I wanted to test that line. Just a little. Fine, I said casually. But if your back hurts tomorrow, don't blame me. She didn't respond. But as she walked past me toward the couch, I caught the smallest exhale from her nose. Almost like a hidden sigh. And I wondered if Raven Vale was as unaffected by me as she pretended to be. I couldn't sleep. Of course I couldn't. Every sound felt louder. Every shadow felt suspicious. So I walked out of the bedroom quietly. Raven was still awake, sitting on the couch, gun resting on her thigh, eyes on the door, like she hadn't moved at all. She looked up when she heard me. Problem? I can't sleep. Try. I did. She studied me, then patted the space beside her on the couch. Not inviting, not warm, just practical. Sit. I sat, close enough that our shoulders almost touched. Close enough that I could feel the heat from her arm. You're not scared, I said. I am. I blinked. You are? Yes. You don't look scared. I don't get paid to look scared. That made me laugh. A soft one. And for a brief second, her lips twitched. Just barely, but I saw it. And my heart did something embarrassing in my chest. Because I realized I want to be the reason she smiled again, even if she never meant to. We sat there in silence. Not awkward, not comfortable, just present. And the strangest thought crossed my mind. I didn't feel like a billionaire's daughter with security problems. I felt like a girl sitting beside someone she trusted, completely, without knowing why. "You can go back to sleep," she said quietly. "I think I will." I stood, but before walking back to the bedroom, really looked at her and asked the question I shouldn't have asked. "Raven, would you still protect me if you weren't being paid to?" She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes held mine, dark, intense, unreadable. Then she said, "Yes," and I didn't know why that answer made it hard to breathe. By morning, I had come to a very uncomfortable realization. I was aware of Raven Vale in a way that was not normal, not Bodyguard normal, not security detail normal. I was aware of her like you become aware of a song stuck in your head that you didn't ask for, but also didn't want to go away. I woke up to the smell of coffee, not because I drink coffee, but because Raven did. I could hear the soft clink of a mug in the kitchen before I even opened my eyes. And somehow, that sound alone made me feel calmer, safer, which was ridiculous, because 3 weeks ago, I hated that she followed me everywhere. Now, I could tell where she was in the apartment. I walked out of the bedroom in oversized shorts and a loose shirt, hair messy, still half asleep. Raven was standing by the kitchen counter, one hand holding a mug, the other scrolling through something on a tablet. Fully dressed, black suit, hair pulled back, composed, like she hadn't slept at all. She glanced at me once, then back to the tablet. "Morning," I blinked. She had never said morning to me before. She usually just said things like, "Your car is ready. We're leaving in 5 minutes. Stand behind me." "Morning," I replied slowly, suspiciously. She slid a glass of water across the counter toward me without looking. "You forget to hydrate when you're anxious." I stared at the glass, then at her. "You noticed that?" "Yes." I took the water, drank it, and for some reason my chest felt warm. Not because of the water, because she had noticed. I watched her while pretending not to. The way she held the mug. The way her eyes kept scanning the room even while reading. The way she always positioned herself with her back to a wall. The way she never truly relaxed. Ever. "You don't know how to stop working, do you?" I asked. "I am working." "You're drinking coffee?" "I am working while drinking coffee." I leaned against the counter. "Do you ever turn it off?" "No." "That sounds exhausting." "It's efficient?" I smiled. She didn't, but I could tell she wasn't annoyed. She was tolerating me, which, for Raven, was basically a fact. Later that afternoon, while she was on a call with my father in the living room, I noticed something that made my stomach flip for no good reason. She had rolled her sleeves up, just slightly, enough to expose her forearms, and I realized I had never seen them before. Defined, scarred, strong, the kind of arms that had held me against the wall last night like I weighed nothing. I shouldn't have been looking, but I was, and when she ended the call and turned, she caught me staring. Her eyebrow lifted. "Yes?" I panicked. "Do you ever smile?" She paused. That clearly wasn't what she expected. "Sometimes I've never seen it." "That's because you're usually complaining," I gasped. "I do not complain." "You do." "About what?" "Me." I crossed my arms. "That was before." "Before what?" I hesitated. "Before I realized I feel safer when you're near. Before I realized I like when you stand too close. Before I started noticing your arms like a complete idiot." "Before the break-in," I said instead. She studied me, longer than necessary, and for a brief second, her gaze softened, just slightly. "Fear changes perspective," she said. "No," I murmured. "You do." She went quiet after that, and I had no idea why saying those 3 words felt like I had stepped somewhere dangerous. That evening, we ordered takeout. Because apparently, being relocated for security reasons means you don't get to cook. We sat at the small dining table across from each other. The silence wasn't awkward anymore, just thick, charged. I caught myself watching the way she ate, neatly, slowly, carefully. "You eat like you're still in the military," I said. She looked up. I know, but you're not now. Habits die hard. So does fear, I guess." She nodded once, then said something that made my chest tighten. "You stopped shaking today." I froze. "You noticed that too?" "Yes." She noticed everything. And I was starting to realize how dangerous that was for my heart. because when someone sees you that closely, you start wanting them to keep looking, even when there's nothing to protect you from, even when the danger is gone, even when the only thing threatening you is how much you're starting to feel. I learned something new about Raven. She doesn't sleep. Not really. She rests, like a machine on standby, ready to activate at the slightest sound. I know this because I woke up at 3:17 a.m. to use the bathroom and found her in the exact same position on the couch as before, back straight, eyes half open, gun still within reach. The TV was off. The lights were dim. The city outside the window was quiet, and Ravenvale was staring at the door like it had personally offended her. "You're still awake?" I whispered. Her eyes shifted to me instantly, fully alert. You don't get tired. I do. You don't look like it. I don't get paid to look tired. I smiled despite myself. There was something absurdly funny about how seriously she took everything. I shuffled closer, hugging my arms. I had a nightmare. That wasn't a lie. I just didn't mention the nightmare had nothing to do with the break-in, and everything to do with her walking away. She moved over slightly on the couch without a making space. I sat beside her. Close. Closer than before. Our shoulders touched this time. She didn't move away. And I realized Raven had this rule. She never initiated closeness, but she never rejected it either, which made me bold in ways I didn't understand. "What do you think about when you sit here like this?" I asked. "Threat patterns." "That sounds boring. It's effective," I sighed. "Raven?" She turned her head slightly. "Yes," and something in my chest flipped, because that was the first time she said my name. Not Miss Laurent, not ma'am, just Arya. Soft, low, careful, like it mattered. I swallowed. "You said my name?" "Yes, you never say my name." "I just did." I stared at her in the dim light. "You don't realize how unfair that is, do you?" "How is that unfair?" "Because now I want to hear you say it again." She didn't answer, but her jaw tightened slightly, like she knew exactly what and was trying very hard not to acknowledge. The next morning, my father insisted I attend a charity gala. Apparently, attempted break-ins are not an excuse to skip public appearances when you're a Laurent. Raven didn't like the idea. I could tell. She didn't argue with my father. She argued with her eyes, her silence, her clipped responses. "You'll remain within arm's reach of me the entire time," she told me while I got ready in the bedroom. "Yes, ma'am." She gave me a look. I grinned. "Sorry, force of habit." She watched me pick out a dress, a simple black one. Elegant, not flashy. Her eyes lingered for a second too long. Then she looked away, and I noticed. Of course I noticed. "Do you hate dresses?" I asked. "No?" "You're staring at it like it insulted you? I'm assessing mobility risks." I laughed. "You mean you're wondering how fast I can run in it?" "Yes, I can run very fast, actually." "You trip over air, Arya." I gasped. "I do not. You tripped over nothing yet." That floor was suspicious. She didn't smile, but her eyes did, and that was worse. Because now I was addicted to trying to make that happen. At the gala, Raven stayed so close behind me that I could feel her presence like heat against my back. Every time someone stepped too near, every time a stranger leaned in to talk, she shifted slightly, blocking, shielding, watching. People kept glancing at her. Not because she was intimidating, but because she was striking. Tall, sharp, silent, beautiful in a way that made you nervous to look too long. And I caught more than one person whispering, "Who is that? Is she security?" "She looks dangerous." I shouldn't have felt proud, but I did, because she was my bodyguard, which was a ridiculous thought. She wasn't mine. She was hired, professional, temporary. But every time her hand lightly touched my lower back to guide me through the crowd, my brain forgot. Halfway through the evening, someone bumped into me hard enough to make me stumble. Before I could react, Raven's arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me back against her chest. Steady, firm, protective. My breath caught. Her hand didn't move immediately. It stayed there a second longer than necessary, and I swear. I felt her fingers tighten slightly, like she didn't like how close I had come to falling. I turned my head. Our faces were inches apart. Too close, way too close. "You okay?" she asked quietly. Her voice was different, lower, personal, not professional. I nodded, but neither of us moved. People were walking around us, talking, laughing, but for a moment it felt like we were standing in the middle of a paused world. Her hand still on my waist, my back still against her, her eyes searching my face like she was checking for damage that didn't exist. And that's when it hit me. I didn't feel protected. I felt... And that realization scared me more than the break-in. I didn't expect the second attempt to happen so soon. That's the thing about danger. You think it gives you time to prepare, to breathe, to recover. But danger doesn't care if you're still trying to figure out why your bodyguard's hand on your waist felt more memorable than the charity gala itself. Danger just comes back. We had barely stepped out of the venue when Raven's posture changed. It was subtle, so subtle no one else would have noticed. But I did, because by now I had learned Raven like a language. Her shoulders stiffened. Her eyes stopped scanning lazily and started tracking sharply. Her hand moved from behind my back to lightly grip my elbow. Not aggressively, but firmly enough that I knew something's wrong. "Stay close," she murmured. I didn't joke this time, didn't tease, didn't ask questions. I just stayed close. The night air felt heavier as we walked. The security team was already positioned, but Raven's gaze kept shifting toward the parking structure across the street. Dark. Too dark. She opened the back door for me. I slid inside. She didn't follow immediately. She stood there, staring across the street for 2 long seconds. Then she got in. Door shut. "Drive," she told the driver calmly. The car pulled away, and only then did I realize my heart was racing. "What is it?" I asked. "I'm not sure yet." That answer terrified me more than if she had said someone has a gun. Because Ravenvale always knew. If she didn't know, it meant something was very... We didn't make it 3 blocks before it happened. A loud crack. The back window spiderwebbed instantly. I screamed. The driver swerved, and Raven's arm slammed across my chest, forcing me down against the seat before I could even process what was happening. "Down!" she barked. Her body covered mine completely, shielding my head, my neck, every vital part of me. Another crack. Glass shattered behind us. Gunshots. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I could feel was Raven's weight over me. Solid, protective, unmovable. Her hand pressed the back of my head into the seat. "Stay down, Arya," she said my name again, louder this time, urgent. And I clung to her jacket without realizing it. The car sped through a red light, tires screeching, my ears rang. Then, silence. No more shots, just the sound of the engine and my own panicked breathing trapped between us. Raven didn't move immediately. She stayed there, covering me, listening. Only when she was absolutely sure did she lift her body slightly. Her hand still on my head. "You okay?" I nodded shakily. But my hands were gripping hers so tight my knuckles hurt. She looked down at me, and for the first time since I met her, Raven looked angry. Not cold, not calm, furious, not at me. At whoever had... Back at the safe house, everything felt different, heavier, real. This wasn't some abstract threat anymore. Someone had just tried to kill me. And Raven had reacted without hesitation, without fear, without thinking about herself at all. She paced the living room while talking rapidly into her comms, coordinating with the rest of the team. Her voice was sharp, precise, commanding. I had never seen her like this before, and instead of being scared of her, I felt something dangerously close to awe. When she finally ended the call, she turned to me. Her eyes softened slightly when she saw I was still standing exactly where she left me. "Sit," she said gently. I sat. She knelt in front of me, and my heart did something I didn't know how to handle. Because Ravenvale, who never lowered herself for anyone, was kneeling in front of me to check if I was hurt. Her hands moved to my arms, my shoulders, my face. Careful. Gentle. "Any pain?" I shook my head. And I realized she had been holding her breath this entire time. "I told you," I whispered. "You'd protect me even if you weren't paid to." Her eyes flicked up to mine, and for a second she didn't hide it, the truth. "I would," she said quietly, and this time, it didn't sound professional at all. I didn't sleep. Not because I was scared, but because every time I closed my eyes, I felt it again. Raven's body over mine, the weight of her. The way she had covered me like I was something fragile, something precious, something worth dying for. And the worst part? I liked remembering it, which felt wrong. Very, very wrong. By morning, the house had turned into a fortress. Extra guards, extra surveillance, extra tension. But Raven was quieter than usual. Not distant, just thinking. Her eyes followed me more closely. Her steps never strayed more than 2 feet from me, and every time our hands brushed accidentally, it felt we were crossing into something neither of us wanted to name. Something dangerous, something personal, something that had absolutely nothing to do with her job anymore. "New rule," she said while I ate breakfast. I looked up. "Should I be scared?" "You don't move anywhere without telling me first." I smirked. "That sounds less like a rule and more like a relationship." She didn't react, which was suspicious, because Raven always reacted to my teasing. I tilted my head. "Raven?" She met my eyes. And for the first time since we met, she didn't hide what she was feeling. "I almost lost you last night." The words were quiet, raw, honest, and they knocked the air out of me. "I'm still here," I said softly. "Barely," she replied. That's when I realized this wasn't just about safety anymore. This was about fear, her fear, of losing me. And I didn't know what to do. Later that afternoon, I made a mistake. A small one, a harmless one. I stepped into the garden alone. Just for air, just for 5 minutes, just to clear my head. And when Raven realized I wasn't inside, I had never seen someone move that fast. The back door slammed open. Her eyes scanned the yard like she expected to find a body. When she saw me sitting on the bench, she didn't slow down. She walked straight up to me, angry, not loud, but furious in that terrifying, controlled way she had. "What did I say this morning?" Her voice was low, dangerously calm. I blinked. "I just needed air." "You don't leave my sight," I froze, because this wasn't professional anger. This was personal panic. "I was gone for 2 minutes," I said gently. "That's all it takes." Her jaw clenched, her hands were shaking slightly, and suddenly I understood. She wasn't mad, she was scared, for me. I stood up slowly. "You were worried," I said. But her silence was the loudest confirmation I'd ever heard. I stepped closer. Too close, close enough that she could step back, but she didn't. "You care," I whispered. Her eyes dropped to my lips, then back to my eyes. "That's the problem," she said. The air changed. Everything slowed. My heart beat so loudly I was sure she could hear it. "Why is that a problem?" I asked. "Because I'm not supposed to—" Her voice was rough now, strained, like she was holding something back with everything she had. I swallowed. "But you do?" "Yes." She didn't even hesitate, and that terrified me more than anything, because Ravenvale never admitted things she couldn't control. And if I said, I took a breath, "I don't mind," her jaw tightened. "Don't say things you don't understand yet." "I understand more than you think." Her hand moved before she could stop herself. It landed on my waist, firm, instinctive, possessive, and we both froze, because now there was no pretending, no professionalism, no job. Just 2 women standing too close, breathing the same air, pretending we weren't about to cross a line that could never be uncrossed. Her thumb pressed slightly into my side, and my body reacted before I stepped even closer. "Arya," she warned, but it didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like a plea. To stop, or to continue. She didn't know which one she wanted. I didn't either, so I did the worst possible thing. I lifted my hand and placed it gently on her chest, right over her heart. It was racing, just like mine.
"I can't."
"You're not as cold as you pretend to be," I whispered. Her breath hitched, and for one reckless, terrifying second,
I'm sorry.
I thought she was going to kiss me. But she didn't. Instead, she closed her eyes, like she was fighting herself. "Go inside," she said hoarsely. "Raven, please." And that word? That soft, desperate please? That was the moment I realized something important. Raven wasn't afraid of the people trying to kill me. She was afraid of what she felt for me. And somehow, that scared her more. After the garden, something changed between us. Not loudly. But like a glass that had been cracked quietly and was now one wrong touch away from shattering. We didn't flirt. We didn't tease. We didn't even look at each other the same way. And somehow, that made everything worse. Because now every silence felt loaded. Every glance felt dangerous. Every accidental touch felt like it. That night, the power went out. Not in the whole neighborhood, just the house. Pitch black, complete silence. Then the backup generator kicked in, but only for the outer lights and security systems. The inside of the house stayed dim, shadows stretching along the walls. My heart immediately started racing. "Raven?" I called. Her voice came instantly from the hallway. "I'm here." Footsteps. Calm, controlled. She entered my room with a flashlight in hand, her eyes already scanning every corner. "Stay where you are," she said. I was sitting up in bed, clutching the blanket like a child. "This wasn't random, was it?" I asked. "No." She checked the window locks, the bathroom, the closet. Her movements were sharp, precise, focused. But I could see it again, that tension in her shoulders. She came back to stand near my bed. "The generator outside is fine. Someone cut the internal power line." My stomach dropped. So they were here. On the property. A chill ran through me. I hated how calm she sounded saying that. Like this was just another Tuesday. "What now?" I whispered. She looked at the door, then at me, and made a decision. I'm not leaving this room tonight. My heart did that thing again, that dangerous, fluttering thing. "You mean standing guard?" She hesitated. "Then no." She pulled the chair from my desk and placed it beside the bed. "I'm staying." We didn't talk for a while. The room was dim, lit only by a small emergency lamp. Raven sat in the chair, elbows on her knees, watching the door like a statue carved from tension. I lay in bed watching her, and the longer I stared, the harder it became to ignore what I felt. This woman, this terrifyingly composed, emotionally repressed, beautiful woman, was choosing to sit in a dark room all night just so I could sleep, because she was afraid something might happen to me, and she couldn't bear the thought. "Raven," I said softly. She didn't look at me. "You can't stay awake all night." "I can." "You shouldn't." Silence. Then after a long moment, she stood up. I thought she was going to argue. Instead, she walked to the other side of the bed and sat down on the floor, her back resting against the mattress. Close. So close I could reach down and touch her hair. "I'll rest like this," she said. My throat felt tight, because this was no longer professional. This was intimate in a way neither of us had prepared for. I shifted slightly, and without thinking, my hand slipped over the edge of the bed. My fingers brushed her shoulder. She went still, didn't pull away, didn't comment, so I left my hand there, resting on her, and we stayed like that, in the quiet, in the dark, in the kind of closeness that says more than words ever. I must have fallen asleep at some point. Because when I woke up, I wasn't alone in the bed. Raven was beside me, still fully dressed, still alert, but lying on her side, facing me. Like sometime in the night, she had decided the floor wasn't close enough. For a few seconds, I just stared at her. Her face in sleep was different, softer, younger, less guarded. Her hand was resting lightly on top of the blanket near my waist, like even in sleep, she needed to know I was there. I didn't think, I didn't analyze, I just moved closer, carefully, slowly, until our foreheads were almost touching. Her eyes opened instantly, sharp, aware. Then they softened when she saw me. "Morning," I whispered. She didn't move away. "Morning." We stayed like that, breathing the same air, close enough that if either of us leaned forward even slightly, everything would change. Her gaze dropped to my lips again, and this time, she didn't look. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure she could hear it. "Raven?" Her name came out like a question, like a confession, like a mistake waiting to happen. Her hand shifted slightly on the blanket, closer to my waist, not touching, but almost. And in that suspended moment, I realized something terrifying. If I kissed her right now, she wouldn't stop me, she wouldn't pull away. She wouldn't pretend this was just a job. But before I could do anything, her comms buzzed, loud, jarring, breaking the moment like glass. She pulled back immediately, professional mask sliding back into place. "Veil," she answered. Her voice was steady again, controlled, and I hated how fast she could do that. She listened for a few seconds. Then her expression darkened. "They found something?" she asked. A pause. "Where?" Another pause. Her eyes flicked to me. Understood. She ended the call, and for the first time since I woke up, I felt cold. "What is it?" I asked. She stood up, her face unreadable. They found the person who cut the power line. I swallowed. And he didn't make it off the property. My stomach twisted. What do you mean? Raven looked at me, and there was something in her eyes I had never seen before. Something dangerous. Something personal. He's dead? Dead. The word felt strange in my mouth. Heavy. Unreal. Raven didn't immediately. She just watched me carefully, like she was measuring how much I could handle. The security team found him near the east fence, she said calmly. He never made it out. How? I asked. Her jaw tightened slightly. He fell. That pause. That tiny, almost invisible hesitation. I caught it. You're lying. Her eyes snapped to mine. I don't lie. You're not telling me everything. Silence. Thick. Uncomfortable. Dangerous. Because this wasn't about the intruder anymore. This was about Raven. What happened? I asked again, softer this time. She looked away. And that's when I knew. Raven Vale, the woman who never broke eye contact with anything, couldn't look at me. I got to him before the others did, she said quietly. My chest tightened. He had a knife. He panicked when he saw me, tried to run, slipped near the slope behind the fence. I could picture it. The dark, the panic, Raven chasing him. Not as a bodyguard, but as someone furious, protective, terrifying. He fell, she repeated. But this time, it sounded like a confession, not an explanation. I swallowed. You could have let him go. Her eyes met mine again. Cold, hard, honest. No, I couldn't. And in that moment, I understood something about Raven that scared me more than the gunshots. She wasn't just protecting me because it was her job. She was protecting me because she had decided, somewhere deep inside herself, that nothing in this world was allowed to hurt me. Not even by act. The house felt different after that. Quieter, heavier, like the walls themselves knew something had changed. Raven didn't leave my side all day, but she also didn't talk much. She moved like usual, acted like usual, but I could feel it, the distance she was trying to create again, the emotional wall going back up, and I hated it, because we had been so close this morning. Too close, and now it felt like she was punishing herself for it, by becoming... By evening, I couldn't take it anymore. She was standing by the window, watching the security team outside. I walked up behind her. You're doing it again. She didn't turn. Doing what? Pretending you don't feel things. Her shoulders stiffened. I feel plenty. Not the things that matter. She finally looked at me, and there it was again. That storm she kept trying to bury. You don't understand what this job requires, she said. Then explain it to me. Silence. Her eyes searched my face, like she was trying to decide if I was worth the risk. You're not supposed to get attached, she said quietly. I know. You're not supposed to care personally. I know. You're definitely not supposed to want to kiss the person you're protecting every time they look at you. My breath caught. She froze, because she hadn't meant to say that out loud. But she had. And now the truth was standing between us. Impossible to ignore. My voice came out barely above a whisper. You want to kiss me? She closed her eyes briefly, like she hated herself for this. Yes. No hesitation, no denial, just honesty, raw, terrifying honesty. And instead of being scared, I stepped closer. Then why don't you? Her eyes opened slowly, dark, intense. Because the moment I do, she said, I stop being your bodyguard and start being what? She didn't answer. But she didn't step. My heart was racing. Loud. Wild. Out of control. Because this was it. The line we had been pretending didn't exist, standing right in front of us, and neither of us was looking away. You're already more than my bodyguard, I said softly. Her hand flexed at her side, like she was fighting the urge to touch me. Don't say things you'll regret later. I won't. You don't know that. I do. I stepped even closer. Now we were inches apart. Her breath was warm against my face. You almost died for me last night, I whispered. Her jaw tightened. I know. That silence again, but this time it wasn't awkward. It was charged, alive, terrifying. I don't want you to stop being my bodyguard, I said. I just don't want you to stop feeling. And that broke her. I saw it. that final piece of resistance cracking. Her hand moved, slowly, carefully, like she was handling something fragile. It came to rest on my waist, not by reflex, by choice. And my entire body reacted instantly. "Aria," she warned again. But there was no strength left in that warning. "Only desire, only conflict, only longing. Raven," I whispered back, and this time, I leaned in, not fast, not reckless, just enough that if she didn't want this, she could stop it. She didn't. Her hand tightened on my waist, pulling me slightly closer. Our lips were a breath apart, and I could feel her heart pounding through her chest. Then, footsteps in the hallway. Voices. Security team talking loudly as they passed the room. Raven pulled back immediately, like reality had slapped her. She stepped away from me, breathing hard. "We can't," she said, but it sounded like she was trying to convince herself, not me. I stared at her, frustrated, breathless, wanting. "Raven, not like this." Her voice was rough now, emotional. "When this is over," she said quietly, "when you're safe, when this job is done," she looked at me in a way that made my knees weak, "then I won't stop myself." And somehow, that promise felt more intimate than a kiss. The next morning, Raven was already gone when I woke up, which had never happened before. My chest tightened instantly. I got out of bed too fast, heart racing, mind already imagining worst-case scenarios. But when I stepped into the hallway, one of the guards nodded at me. "She's in the study with someone," he said. "Someone?" Raven never met someone without telling me first. I walked toward the study slowly, unease crawling up my spine. The door was slightly open. Voices inside. A woman's voice. Calm. Sharp. Familiar in a way that made my stomach twist even though I had never heard it before. "You're too close to her, Raven." I froze. Raven didn't answer. The woman continued. "You always do this. You blur the line. And people get hurt." I felt like I was listening to something I wasn't. Like I had just walked into Raven's past. "I'm handling it," Raven said, her voice back to that cold professional tone I hadn't heard in days. "That's what you said last time." Silence. Heavy, loaded, painful. I pushed the door open. Both of them turned. Raven's eyes widened slightly when she saw me. The other woman didn't look surprised at all. She was tall, sharp features, short dark hair, dressed like she owned every room she walked into. And the way she looked at Raven wasn't professional. It was personal, very personal. "Aria," Raven said quickly, standing up. "This is Commander Elise Moreau." Commander, so she was military, or former, which meant she knew Raven from before. Elise gave me a small smile that didn't reach her eyes. "So you're the one, I didn't like how that sounded." "The one what?" I asked. Elise's gaze flicked to Raven briefly, then back to me. "The one she's willing to break her rules for." My heart skipped. Raven's jaw tightened. "But Elise didn't stop. She didn't tell you about me, did she?" "No, she didn't. And now I wanted to know why." "Elise was my commanding officer years ago," Raven said flatly. "Years ago." But the tension in the room didn't feel old. It felt unfinished. "Elise was more than that," Elise corrected calmly, and the silence that followed was deafening. I looked at Raven. She didn't deny it. My stomach dropped. "You two?" I started. "We were together," Elise said casually, like she was discussing the weather, not dropping a bomb in the middle of my chest. Raven's eyes flicked to me quickly, watching my reaction, measuring it, and I hated how much it hurt. Not because Raven had a past, but because I could feel how important that past. "I'm here because this situation is escalating," Elise continued. "All business now. Whoever is targeting Aria has resources. Planning. This isn't random." Raven nodded. "I know. Eliminating the intruder last night was sloppy." Raven's eyes hardened. "He was armed. He was scared. He was on the property." Their voices were calm, but the argument underneath was fierce and personal. Like they had had this conversation before. Many times. "You always get like this when you care too much," Elise said quietly. "And you always pretend caring is a weakness," Raven shot back. I felt like an outsider watching something I wasn't supposed to see. A history I didn't understand. a connection I couldn't compete with. And for the first time since this whole thing started, I felt insecure. Elise noticed. Of course she did. She looked at me gently. Don't misunderstand. Raven is the best at what she does. She's also terrible at protecting her own heart. After Elise left to inspect the perimeter, the room felt suffocatingly quiet. I turned to Raven. You never told me. Her voice was careful. It wasn't relevant. You were in love with her. That landed harder than I expected. Raven didn't answer. Which was answer enough. Are you still? I asked before I could stop myself. Her eyes snapped to mine. No, immediate, certain. But something in her expression said it wasn't that simple. You two still argue like a married couple, I muttered. That's because she knows me better than anyone. The words slipped out before she could stop them, and I felt it. That sting, that ugly, jealous sting I didn't want to feel. Raven saw it on my face instantly, and her expression changed, softened. Arya, I stepped back slightly. I didn't know I was competing with a ghost. You're not. It doesn't feel like that. She took a step toward me. You are nothing like her. That wasn't reassuring. Is that supposed to make me feel better? She sighed, frustrated. Not at me, at herself. Elise and I ended because I chose the job over her. Every time, she wanted me to stop. I wouldn't. Her voice lowered. She said one day I'd meet someone who would make me hesitate. My heart thudded. And now? I asked quietly. Raven held my gaze. I hesitate all the time, and suddenly, everything made sense. The distance, the fear, the way she kept stopping herself from crossing that line. Because last time she crossed it, she lost someone, and she was terrified of repeating that. I'm not going to ask you to quit your job, I said softly. Her eyes searched mine. I just want you to stop acting like feeling something is a mistake, and for the first time since Elise walked in. Raven smiled. Small, real, relieved. You're very dangerous, Arya. I tilted my head. Why? Because you make me want things I promised myself I'd never. And somehow. That felt like a confession far more intimate than anything else she'd said so far. Elise stayed, not in the house, but on the property, which meant Raven was tense all day, not visibly, not in a way anyone else would notice. But I did. I noticed the way her jaw stayed tight, the way she double-checked every camera feed twice, the way she didn't let me out of her sight for more than 30 seconds. And I noticed something else. She was quieter, like Elise's presence had pulled old memories to the surface that Raven wasn't ready to face. By evening, the air in the mansion felt heavy, like a storm was waiting to happen. It started with a scream. Mine. Because the lights in my room suddenly cut out. Total darkness. My heart slammed into my ribs. Raven? Before I could even reach for my phone, my door burst open. A flashlight beam cut through the dark. Raven. Gun raised, eyes sharp, breathing controlled. She crossed the room in seconds. Stay behind me. Her voice was calm, but her body was pure alertness. We heard it then. A loud crash downstairs. Glass shattering. Someone had broken in again. But this time, they weren't sneaking. They were sending. Raven grabbed my hand and pulled me into the hallway. Emergency lights flickered on dimly. Red. Everything looked like a horror movie. Guards were shouting downstairs, running. Raven pushed me into a small storage closet. Get inside. What? No, Arya, the tone. The one that meant no argument. I stepped in. She followed, closed the door, locked it. And suddenly, we were pressed together in the dark, breathing the same air, my back against the wall, her body in front of mine. So close I could feel her heartbeat through her chest. Footsteps thundered past the hallway outside, voices yelling. A gunshot. I flinched. Raven's hand instantly went to the back of my neck. Firm. Protective. Breathe, she whispered. I didn't realize I was shaking until she said it. Her forehead rested against mine in the dark. We couldn't see each other, only feel. And somehow that made everything more intense. I'm here, she murmured. Not as a professional. Another crash downstairs. Then silence. Too much silence. My hands had fisted into her shirt without me noticing. She didn't pull away. She didn't move. She just let me hold on. Her breath slow, steady, grounding me. And in that dark closet with danger only feet away, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't afraid of the intruder. I was afraid of losing her. The thought hit me so hard I blurted it out before thinking. "Don't leave me," Raven stilled. "I'm not going anywhere. I mean, ever." Silence. Heavy. Her hand tightened slightly at my neck. "Arya, if something happens to you because of me, nothing is going to happen to me." Her voice was low, certain. But if it did? She didn't answer. Because we both knew the truth. This job was dangerous, and I hated it. I hated that she lived in a world where dying for someone was part of the contract. "I don't like that this is normal for you," I whispered. Her breath brushed my lips. It's not normal anymore." "Why?" A pause, then quietly. "Because now I have something to lose." My heart. Footsteps approached the door. We both froze. Raven's hand moved from my neck to my waist, pulling me slightly behind her. Gun raised. Ready. The doorknob rattled. I stopped breathing. Then, "Elise, clear!" Raven exhaled slowly. The tension in her body eased just slightly. She opened the door. Elise stood there, flashlight in hand. 2 intruders, both neutralized. They were after the main security hub. Raven nodded. Meaning, they wanted the cameras down. They weren't after valuables. They were after me. The realization settled like ice in my veins. Elise's eyes flicked between us, taking in how close we were, how my hand was still clutching Raven's shirt. She didn't comment, but she noticed. Later that night, after the police, after the chaos, after the statements, I couldn't sleep. Every sound made me jump. Every shadow felt like someone watching. I was sitting on my bed, lights on, hugging a pillow when there was a knock. Soft, controlled. Raven. "Come in," I whispered. She stepped inside. No jacket, no gun, just her. She looked at me for a long moment, taking in the fear I was trying to hide. Then she did something she had never done before. She locked my door from the inside, walked over, and sat on the bed. Close. Very close. "You should sleep," she said quietly. "I can't." She studied me, then sighed softly, and lay down, on top of the covers, beside me. I stared at her. "You don't have to. I know." She turned slightly on her side, facing me. "I'm not leaving tonight." My throat tightened. I lay down too, facing her. The space between us was barely inches, close enough that our knees touched. Her watching me, guarding me, not as a job, but as a choice. "Raven, yes. Are you staying because it's your duty?" She didn't hesitate. "No." "Then why?" Her gaze softened. "Because you're scared. And I don't like it. That simple, that honest, that devastating." My hand moved before I could think, rested lightly on her sleeve. She didn't move away, didn't comment, just let it stay there. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt safe enough to close my eyes, with Raven right beside me, not leaving, not pulling away, just staying. I woke up to warmth, not sunlight, not blankets, warmth. For a few seconds, I didn't understand why my heart felt strangely calm. Then I realized. Raven's arm was draped across my waist, not tightly, not possessively, just there, like sometime in the night she had moved closer without realizing it. Her face was inches from mine, hair slightly messy, breathing slow, and for the first time since I met her, she didn't look like a bodyguard. She looked like a woman who had finally allowed herself to rest. My heart did something embarrassing in my chest, something soft, something dangerous. I didn't move, because I didn't want this moment to end, but of course, it did. Her eyes opened, and for half a second, she didn't remember where she was. Then she did, and she froze. Her arm was still around me, our legs tangled slightly. Her gaze dropped to where her hand rested on my waist, then back to my face. We stared at each other, too close, too aware, and neither of us moved away. "You drool when you sleep," she said quietly. I blinked. "I do not." "You do." I narrowed my eyes. "You're lying." A tiny smirk touched her lips. I shoved her shoulder lightly, and she laughed. Actually laughed. Soft. Real. The sound made my chest tighten, because I realized something terrifying. I wanted to be the reason she laughed like that. We went downstairs for breakfast. and for the first time since the attack started, I didn't feel afraid. Because Raven walked beside me. Not behind. Not scanning every corner. Beside me. Close enough that our shoulders brushed occasionally. And I noticed something else. The staff noticed. The guards noticed. Elise definitely noticed. She was already in the dining room when we walked in. Coffee in hand. Watching us with that sharp, knowing gaze. Her eyes dropped to Raven. Then to me. Then to the space between us. That was almost non-existent. Interesting. Very interesting. Elise, Raven greeted calmly. Raven, she replied. Her gaze shifted to me. Good morning, Arya. I nodded. Morning. But I could feel it. The unspoken tension. Not hostile, not jealous. Observant. Like Elise was watching a story unfold that she already knew the ending. Halfway through breakfast, one of the guards rushed in. Ma'am, there's a situation at the front gate. Raven stood immediately. What situation? A woman. She's demanding to see Arya. Says it's urgent, I frowned. Who? The guard hesitated. She says she's your mother's former assistant. My stomach dropped. That name, that connection, I hadn't heard it in years. Raven's eyes sharpened. Bring her to the security room. Not here. She turned to me. Stay. I'm coming with you. No. Yes. We stared at each other. And for once, I didn't back down. Whoever is targeting me knows my past. I need to hear this. Raven studied my face, then nodded once. Stay. The woman was shaking when we saw her. Older, nervous, eyes darting everywhere. The moment she saw me, she grabbed my hands. Arya, they're asking about you. My heart started racing. Who? Men. 2 days ago, they came to my house, asking about your mother. About you? Raven stepped forward slightly. What did you tell them? Nothing, I swear. But they knew things. Private things. Cold fear slid down my spine. What things? I whispered. She hesitated, then said it. They knew about the scandal. The one your family buried. I felt the blood drain from my face. Raven noticed instantly. What scandal? I shook my head. I didn't want to say it, didn't want to relive it. But now it was here, dragging itself into the light. My mother wasn't just a socialite, I said quietly. She was involved in a corruption case years ago. Powerful people, money laundering, political names. Elise inhaled sharply behind us. Raven's expression went stone cold. And you think this is connected? I don't think, the woman said shakily. I know. She pulled out her phone, showed us a photo. A man. The same man from the first break-in? My breath caught. They showed me this, asked if I knew him. Raven took the phone. Her eyes darkened. This isn't random. Elise stepped closer. This is retaliation, and suddenly, everything made sense. Later, as the woman was escorted out safely, I stood in the hallway feeling like the ground had disappeared under me. This is my fault, I whispered. Raven turned to me sharply. No. If my family hadn't. No, she repeated firmer. Her hands landed on my shoulders. Steady. Grounding. None of this is your fault. But they're coming because of me. They're coming because they think you're weak, she said quietly. Her eyes burned into mine, and they are very wrong. Something in the way she said that made my heart race. Not fear. Something else. Something intense. Possessive. Protective. Dangerous. And I realized. Raven wasn't just guarding me anymore. She was personally invested. That evening, there was a meeting. Security upgrades, relocation plans, Elise talking strategy, guards discussing routes, and the entire time, Raven didn't look at the screens. She looked at me, like I was the mission, like I was the only thing that mattered in the room. And everyone noticed, especially Elise. At one point, she leaned toward Raven and muttered quietly, "You're in trouble." Raven didn't look away from me when she answered. I know, and I felt my face heat, because for the first time, I realized she wasn't fighting this anymore. She was losing, to me. That night, Raven didn't leave my room, not because I asked, not because I was scared, but because she didn't want to. She sat in the armchair by the window, arms crossed, watching the security feed on her tablet while I pretended to read a book I hadn't turned a single page of. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was heavy, charged, like something had shifted after the truth about my family came out. After she looked at me like I was no longer just a client, but something she needed to protect for herself. "Raven?" I said softly. She looked up immediately. "Yes. Are you going to send me away?" Her brows pulled together. "What? To some safe house, somewhere far from here." She didn't answer right away, which was answer enough. I swallowed. "I don't want to go." Her gaze softened. "Arya, this isn't safe anymore." "I don't care. You should." "I don't," I repeated firmer, "because you'll still be here, and I'll be alone somewhere else wondering if you're okay." She stared at me, really stared, like she was seeing something she hadn't expected. "You're worried about me?" she asked quietly. "Yes." The word came out without hesitation, and something in her expression cracked, just slightly, enough for me to see the woman underneath. The next morning, the plan was set. I was supposed to be moved to a secure property out of the city, Elise insisted. The security team agreed. It was the safest option. Raven hadn't said a word during the discussion, but I could feel it. She hated the idea, because moving me meant distance, and distance meant losing control over my safety. And maybe losing control over something else too. We were walking to the armored car when it happened. A black van sped toward the gate, too fast. Too intentional. "Get down!" Raven shouted. Gun out, body in front of mine instantly. The van rammed the gate, guards fired. Chaos exploded. I was pushed behind the car. Raven's arm locked around me like iron. Then, gunfire. Too close. Too loud. I flinched. Raven didn't. She moved. Fast. Precise. Deadly. 2 attackers down within seconds, but one of them ran toward me. I saw it. Before anyone else. Before Raven. He wasn't aiming for the house. He was aiming for me. "Raven!" I screamed. She turned, saw him, and in that split second, she had a choice. Take the shot, or shield me. She didn't shoot. She turned and threw herself in front of me. The gun went off, a deafening sound. I felt Raven's body jerk. My world stopped. "Raven!" She didn't fall. She staggered, but she stayed standing. The guard behind her fired. The attacker dropped, but I wasn't looking at him. I was looking at her. At the dark stains spreading on her shoulder. Blood. So much. Everything after that was a blur. Shouting. Sirens! Elise yelling orders. I was on my knees beside Raven as medics worked on her. She was pale, but conscious. Her eyes locked onto mine. "Hey," she whispered, like she was comforting me, not the one bleeding. "Don't talk," I choked. She gave a weak smirk. "You're crying." "Of course I'm crying." Her hand lifted slightly, touched my wrist. "I'm okay. You got shot." Occupational hazard. I wanted to scream at her. Instead, I held her hand like if I let go, she'd At the hospital, they wouldn't let me in the operating room. So I paced. Back and forth, back and forth. Elise stood nearby, watching me quietly. "You love her," she said. It wasn't a question. I stopped walking, my throat tight. "Yes," she nodded slowly. "She chose you today." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "She had a clean shot at the attacker," Elise said calmly. "But she turned to shield you instead." My chest tightened painfully. She broke protocol. Again. Because of me. Because she cares about you more than the mission. And for Raven, that was huge. That was When they finally let me see her, she was asleep. Bandaged. Pale. Hooked to machines. And I had never felt so terrified in my life. I sat beside her bed, took her hand gently. "You idiot," I whispered. My voice broke. "You absolute reckless idiot." Her fingers twitched slightly in mine, and I leaned closer. "You don't get to scare me like that." Tears slipped down my face. I didn't know it would hurt this much to imagine losing you. Her eyes slowly opened, heavy, tired, but focused on me. "Arya." I leaned forward, careful of the wires. "You scared me." Her lips curved faintly. "I told you, I'm hard to kill." I laughed through tears, then said the thing I hadn't said yet, the thing sitting in my chest for days. "I love you." The words hung between us, raw, unfiltered, real. Raven went very still. Her eyes searched mine, like she needed to be sure she heard it right. And then, Very quietly. I was trying so hard not to, and that was her. Raven wasn't allowed to leave the hospital for 2 days, which meant I didn't leave either. I slept in the chair beside her bed. A nurse tried to convince me to go home. I refused. Elise visited once, stood at the door, watched us quietly, Raven asleep. My head resting beside her arm on the mattress. She didn't interrupt. She just nodded slightly to herself, like a prediction. On the second night, Raven woke up to find me half asleep, still holding her hand. She didn't say anything at first, just watched me, then gently squeezed my fingers. I opened my eyes immediately. "You're awake. You drool when you sleep," she said softly. I squinted at her. "You already used that joke." She gave me the smallest smile. But it stayed longer this time, because something was different. The distance was gone. The wall was gone. The careful restraint she had been holding onto for weeks was gone. "Arya," she said quietly. "Yes?" "You said something before I went into surgery." My heart jumped. "Oh, that," I swallowed. "You don't have to. I love you too." The words were calm, certain, not dramatic, not hesitant, just true. I let me harder than any grand confession ever could. I felt my eyes burn. "You say it like you're confirming a weather report." She smirked faintly. "I'm on pain medication." I laughed, then laughed again. Because hearing it from her felt like winning a battle. I didn't know I would. She was discharged the next day, against medical advice. "Of course, I can recover at home," she insisted. "You were shot," I said. "I've had worse. That is not comforting." But she came home, and everything. Raven didn't go back to sleeping in the hallway. She didn't sit in the armchair. She didn't pretend anymore. That night, she walked into my room, closed the door behind her, and said, "I'm not sleeping anywhere else." My heart raced. "Okay," she paused, studying my face. "Is that okay?" I smiled softly. "Yes." She nodded once, then lay down beside me like it was the most natural thing in the world. No awkwardness, no tension, just quiet understanding. Her arm rested around my waist again. But this time, it wasn't. The next morning we walked into the kitchen together, and the staff absolutely noticed. One of the maids nearly dropped a tray. A guard looked away too quickly, and Elise, who was leaning against the counter with coffee, just sighed. "There it is," she muttered. Raven didn't react. She simply poured me a glass of juice like this was normal, like we hadn't crossed every professional boundary in existence. "Elise," Raven greeted calmly. Elise looked at her, then at me, then at Raven's hand resting casually at the small of my back. "You lasted longer than I thought," Elise said. Raven didn't deny it, didn't explain it, didn't hide it. And later that afternoon, Raven was reviewing security footage when I walked into the study. She didn't look up, but her hand reached out automatically, found mine, held it, like she needed the contact without thinking. I stared at our hands. "You do that a lot now." "Do what?" "Reach for me." She finally looked up, her expression soft. "I didn't realize." I smiled. "I like it." She squeezed my fingers gently, then went back to the screen, still holding my hand, like letting go wasn't an option. That evening, I asked the question that had been sitting in my chest. "Are you going to quit?" Her eyes flicked to me. "No," I nodded. "I didn't think so, but," she continued, "I am requesting reassignment after this." My heart skipped. "Why?" She held my gaze. "Because I don't want a job where choosing you feels like breaking the rules." And that was the moment I realized how serious this was to her. She wasn't just falling in love. She was rearranging her. That night, as we lay in bed, I traced the edge of her bandage gently. "You scared me," I whispered. She turned her head slightly toward me. "I know. Don't do that again." "I'll try." I looked at her. "You'd still do it, wouldn't you?" She didn't answer, because we both knew the truth. Yes, she would, every time, without hesitation, and somehow, that made me love her even more. 3 days passed quietly, too quietly. No break-ins, no threats, no suspicious activity, and somehow, that felt worse. Raven noticed it too. She became sharper, more alert, like she was waiting for the storm she knew was coming. I tried to pretend things were normal. We had breakfast together. She walked me around the garden in the evenings. At night, we lay in bed talking softly about nothing and everything. But the tension never left her shoulders, and I knew why. Whoever was behind this hadn't finished. It happened in the afternoon. A call came through the main line. The guard handed the phone to Raven with a strange look. He asked for Arya by name. Raven's jaw tightened. She put the phone on speaker. "Who is this?" A man's voice answered. Calm. Amused. Dangerous. "I was wondering how long it would take for you to realize this isn't about money." My blood ran cold. Raven's voice was ice. "What do you want?" A soft chuckle. "I want what our mother took from us." My hand started shaking. Raven noticed instantly. She reached for me without looking, held my wrist, grounded me. "You're targeting the wrong person," she said coldly. "No," the man replied. "I'm targeting the only person left who can pay for it." A pause. "Then, we know where you are." The room felt suffocating. Elise, who had arrived that morning for a check-in, swore under her breath. "They're escalating," she said. Raven was already moving, issuing orders, lockdown procedures, extra patrol, but I could see it in her eyes. This was no longer defensive. This was personal. "They're not going to stop," I whispered. Raven looked at me, and I saw something there I hadn't seen before. Fear, not for herself. That night, she didn't let me out of her sight, not even to shower. She stood outside the bathroom door like a statue. When I came out, I found her staring at nothing, thinking. "Hard? Raven?" She blinked. "Yes, talk to me." She hesitated, then said quietly, "I think the safest way to end this is to end it." I frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means we stop waiting for them to come to us." My stomach dropped. "You're going after them?" Her silence was answer enough. "No," I said immediately. Her eyes snapped to mine. "You don't get to run into danger like that. I don't get to sit here and wait for them to try again. You just got shot, and I would do it again," she said calmly. "That's the problem." We were both breathing hard now, standing too close, emotions too loud. "I can't lose you," I whispered. Her expression softened instantly. You don't know that." She stepped closer, hands gently holding. "I have spent my entire life calculating risk, planning outcomes, surviving situations people don't walk away from." Her voice dropped. "But loving you is the first time I've ever been afraid to die." My heart shattered in my chest. "Then don't go," I pleaded. She rested her forehead against mine. "I have to. So this stops. So you can live without looking over your shoulder?" Tears slipped down my face, and she wiped them away carefully. "I'm coming back," she promised. And somehow. Later that night, Elise cornered me in the hallway. "She's made up her mind, hasn't she?" I nodded. Elise sighed. "She was always like this. Once she decides something, nothing changes it." I looked at her. "Will she be okay?" Elise met my eyes. "She's the best there is." That wasn't what I asked. But it was the only answer before Raven stood by the door in full tactical gear. Black, armed, focused. She looked like the woman I met weeks ago. Cold, professional, untouchable. Except now, she walked back to me, held my face gently, and kissed my forehead. Soft, tender. "I'll be back before you wake up," she said. I grabbed her jacket. "Be careful." She gave me a small smile. "For you, always." And then she left, taking my heart with her. I didn't sleep. I tried. But every time I closed my eyes, I imagined Raven walking into danger alone. Every clock tick felt louder. Every sound outside made my heart jump. By 5 a.m., I was sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at the door, waiting, praying, and then footsteps. Fast. Familiar. My heart stopped. The door opened. Raven walked in, dirty, tired, breathing hard, but alive. I ran to her before she could say anything, threw my arms around her. She caught me instantly, held me so tight my feet left the ground. I'm here," she whispered into my hair. "I'm here." I didn't realize I was crying until she pulled back and wiped my face gently. "It's over," she said. "What happened?" "We found him. The man behind it. Your mother exposed his operation years ago. He lost everything. He wanted revenge. Is he? In custody. Final. Finished. No more running." I looked at her properly then. There was a cut on her lip, dirt on her cheek, her eyes exhausted, but soft when they looked at me. "You came back," I whispered. "I told you I would—" And something in me broke. All the fear, all the tension, all the nights of pretending I wasn't terrified of losing her. It poured out at once. I pulled her toward me, kissed her. Not soft, not hesitant, desperate. She froze for half a second, then kissed me back like she'd been holding that in for weeks. Her hand slid to my waist. Mine tangled into her shirt. And the world disappeared. No guards, no house, no past. Just— She pulled back slightly, breathing hard, eyes searching mine. "Arya." But I shook my head. No more waiting, no more pretending. Her forehead rested against mine. "You're sure?" "Yes." Her hand cupped my face gently, like I was something fragile, something precious. Then she kissed me again, slower this time, deeper, full of everything we hadn't said, everything we had felt, everything we had survived. We stumbled toward the bed without breaking the kiss, laughing softly when we almost tripped. And for once, Raven wasn't the bodyguard. She wasn't the protector. She was just a woman in love. She laid me down gently, like I might disappear if she moved too fast. Her fingers brushed my cheek, my hair, my shoulder, slow, careful, reverent, and I realized this wasn't rushed. This wasn't desperate. This was something she had wanted to do right. Her lips trailed softly along my jaw. And I felt my heart race in a way that had nothing to do with fear. I pulled her closer. She exhaled softly against my skin. And when her eyes met mine again, there was no hesitation left, only love. The rest of the world faded, the lights blurred, and the night became ours. Morning sunlight slipped through the curtains. I woke up with Raven's arm around me, her face relaxed, peaceful, my head resting on her chest, listening to her heartbeat. And for the first time since this all began, there was no danger, no fear, no tension, just warmth, just us. She opened her eyes slowly, looked down at me, and smiled. "You're staring," she murmured. "I like looking at you." Her fingers brushed my hair gently. "I like waking up next to you," I smiled. "Good. Because you're not going anywhere." She leaned down, kissed my forehead softly. "No," she said quietly. "I'm not. 6 months ago, my life had security cameras, panic buttons, and a woman who barely spoke unless it was necessary. Now, it still had security, but it also had Raven stealing my hoodies and pretending she didn't. The house felt different, lighter, warmer, like the walls themselves had finally exhaled. The threats were gone. The investigation closed. The guards reduced. My father had relaxed for the first time in years. And Raven? She no longer stood 3 steps behind me. She walked beside me, sometimes with her hand brushing mine like it was accidental. It never was. I found her in the kitchen one morning, staring very seriously at the coffee machine like it had personally offended her. "You've been looking at that for 5 minutes," I said. "It's blinking at me. That means it's done." She narrowed her eyes at it. "I don't trust it." I laughed and reached around her to grab my cup. She froze for a second at the closeness. She still did that sometimes, like she hadn't fully adjusted to the fact that she was allowed to be near me now. Not as a guard, but as— "Dad asked if you're staying for dinner," I said casually. Raven's shoulders stiffened. As security, as family, she went quiet. Raven Laurent, the woman who could take down armed men without blinking, was terrified of dinner invitations. "I don't know how to be that," she admitted. I stepped closer. "You don't have to be anything. Just be Raven." Her eyes softened in that way that still made my heart do stupid things. "That seems to be enough for you. It's more than enough." Later that evening, I caught her in the living room, looking at an old photo of my mother. She didn't notice me watching. There was something gentle in her expression, respectful, almost protective. "She would have liked you," I said quietly. Raven looked over at me. "I think she would have been relieved," she replied. "Why?" "Because someone is finally protecting her daughter the way she wanted to." My chest tightened. I walked to her and slipped my hand into hers. She squeezed it instinctively, not like a body, like a partner. That night, we sat on the balcony together, city lights glowing below us. Quiet, comfortable. her arm around my shoulders, my head resting against her. "You know," I said softly, "you don't have to stay." She looked down at me. "I know, but you are—" "Yes. Why?" She didn't answer immediately, just brushed her thumb gently over my hand. "Because for the first time in my life, staying feels like something I want, not something I'm assigned to do." I smiled. "That's good, because I wasn't planning to let you leave." A rare, quiet laugh escaped her. "And I realized something? The Ice Queen everyone feared. She melted in the softest ways when no one else was looking, and I was the only one allowed to see it." Before we went inside, she stopped me. "Arya?" She hesitated, then said it. "I love you. Simple. Honest. No hesitation." I smiled up at her. "I love you too, Raven." She kissed my forehead. And for the first time since she walked into my life as my bodyguard. There was no job, no danger, no obligation. Just two women who had accidentally, impossibly, beautifully fallen in love, and chose, every day, to—
Hey everyone, thank you for watching my YouTube video. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe, and turn on your bell icon to get notified when I post more amazing Yuri video, and I will see you in my next video.